Okay, so I think in the previous class we were discussing about creep of rails, wherein I told you what creep in rails is, and we possibly discussed about what are the causes of creep to take place in rail, and then the theories which explains the creep taking place on rails. We discussed that we have three such theories. One is wave action theory, second is percussion theory, and the third one is drag theory. So these are the things that we discussed. Then we also discussed about measurement of creep in rails. I showed you the diagrams on how the measurement of creep would be done, and accordingly how the adjustments need to be done. So we normally try to pull back the rail in position if it has moved, and once it has been found that creep has taken place above 15 centimeters in length, then you will loosen all the fasteners and then pull back the rail. Second alternative is to use anti-creep devices. You will study about anti-creep devices in detail when we discuss, or I might give you an assignment based on it. Looking into the textbook, you might have to draw those cross sections and sections of the fittings and fasteners, and accordingly submit the assignment. So in that particular section you will be studying more about anti-creep devices. There are plenty of anti-creep devices that has been used by people since olden days. Okay, now let's move on to the next part, which is regarding rail joints. Now, rail joints, they are basically three types which the engineers have classified into. Okay, so the rail joints can be of three types. One is supported joints. Second category or type is the suspended joint, and then the third category of joint is the special type of joints. Okay, so depending upon the way with which the joint is being placed along the railway track, you have these different types of joints. Now let's talk about the first one, supported joint. Now when it is called as a supported joint, the word itself means that the joint is being supported by some medium. So in case of these kind of joints, if you have a look at the image here, if this is rail A and rail B, and if this is the joint of the two rails, then this particular joint is being supported by a sleeper. So such kind of a joint which is supported by a sleeper, okay, is what we call as a supported joint. Okay, now it has its own advantage and its own disadvantage. The advantage is that always the level of the rail will be maintained properly. The joint will get an additional support, and it will tend to resist the stresses, and it won't get worn out so easily. Okay, so the stability of the joint is ensured when you have a supported joint. All the fittings and fasteners like fish plates, fish bolts, etc. will be operating very well in this particular case. Okay, the only problem that we face here is that as and how the joint starts becoming hard and tight, and when the vehicles move on the surface, when the wheel approaches this particular section, the vibrations or the stresses will be induced at this joint, and then it would be transferred directly to the sleeper first and then to the formation below. Okay, so what will happen here is the impact and the stresses will be immediately given to the sleeper. So sleepers are made out of usually cement concrete, or it might be a steel based sleeper. So due to this impact, wearing out of the sleeper in this particular section, okay, on the top of the sleeper, will be very excessively seen. So the sleeper just below the joint will start getting deteriorated at a very faster pace, and hence it might lose its stability and its durability. So to prevent this to happen, normally what they do is the sleepers or the joint would be placed on the sleeper, but before placing it on the sleeper they place one more metallic sheet which we call as the bearing plate. Okay, so the bearing plate of certain thickness will be placed here just above the sleeper, so that whatever impact that comes and hits the sleeper will be avoided through direct contact. Okay, so that is what we call as the supported joint. Next, on similar grounds, if this is the joint and then it has no support at the bottom, then we call such kind of a joint as suspended joint. Now all these images which I have been showing here is when you look at the track from the side. Okay, it's not the cross section or it is not the plan, but it is an elevation. Okay, so this is how the sleeper would look like. So in the second case, if this is the joint, that is if this is the head section and if this is the foot section, this would be the web, and the web would be connected with each other with the help of fish plates and fish bolts. Then such kind of joints which are suspended freely, okay, whereas the sleepers would be placed slightly apart from the joint, we call such kind of joints as suspended joints. Okay, so in this particular case the stress would be transferred to the sleepers um, i- i- through see what happens here is when the wheel moves at this particular section, whatever stress that gets induced in the rails, they get distributed in a very broader area. Okay, so a broader area of distribution of the stresses might be seen. So since you have a better distribution of stresses, because this being a joint section, it will induce much more elasticity in the system. Okay, so only thing is that you need to maintain the joint periodically or to a very greater extent in this case. Okay, but as far as the load distribution is concerned, what will happen is you have a better stress transmission to the underlays in this particular type of joint when compared to that of the supported joint. So you don't have any problem of the sleeper getting worn out. That's why this particular joint is very much popularly being used in most of the railway boards across the world. Okay, other than this supported joint and suspended joint, you have one more category which we call as the special type of joints. Okay, now here whatever image that we are seeing, that would be in the form of a plan. So if this is a railway track, okay, this would be the outer rail and this would be the inner rail, right? Or this would be the outer rail and then this would be the inner rail. So when you look at the railway track from the top, this is how the image would look like. So we are looking it as a plan. So when we look at such kind of joint sections as a plan, you have almost 8 different types of special joints. Let's begin with the first one, that is staggered joint. Now these kind of joints, they might be supported or suspended ones, but in case if they are placed in the form of staggered pattern like this, so two rails are joined at this point and then the next joint would be here, the next joint would be here, and so on. But on the inner side of the rail, what will happen is just between these two joints which you have given on the outer rail, you will be placing the joint in the inner rail. So you can see the joints are in staggered fashion. Okay, so usually in the curved section this kind of a situation is being observed. Okay, So this particular case is to necessitate the strengthening of the system and maintaining the stability of the system. Okay, so this is what we call as the staggered joint type. Next is square joint. So on a straight railway track, you can see on the outer rail again the joints here when compared to that of the outer rails and the inner rails, you can see that the joints will be placed in front of each other, okay, just parallel to each other. So such kind of joints are called as square joints. Next, you have the bridge joint. Bridge joint is similar to the supported joint, but here rather than using a sleeper, what we normally do is we use a metallic plate or a metallic material which will be shaped in the form of a spring like this, just like a sinusoidal wave. You will be fitting both the sides to the neighboring sleepers, and this elevated portion will be holding the joint. Now what will happen is when the wheel moves upon this particular section, the joint sinks in, but because of the elasticity of this metal that is supporting the joint, it retains its position back how it was in the beginning. Okay, so that is what we call as the bridge joint. So such kind of joints where you have the bridge plate being used to support the joint and fixed to the neighboring sleepers are called as bridge plates and bridge joints. Okay, next you have welded joints. Now the process of welding has evolved itself to a very great extent these days in railways. Now as I have been telling you that joints are considered to be as the weakest section in a railway track. Okay, that's the only weakest part that we can expect. I don't say that that is the only one, provided when compared to the other defects and failures in rails, most frequently the accidents which happen is because of improper joints. So that is considered as the weakest section in a railway track. So people have tried to understand why these joints are required and why not we use some other technique to minimize the risks. That's when the process of welding has come into picture. Okay, so normally, as I told you, each rail that is manufactured in the industry would be between 12 meters to 15 meters. It depends on the standards. Okay, so each rail will be of that length. So imagining that each rail is of 12 meters, then as far as the older process is concerned, we had to join each one of these rails to prepare a railway track which will be running for hundreds of kilometers. Okay, and that joining was possible only with the help of fish plates and fish bolts. But since this welding is being adopted, you can reduce the number of joints, but you cannot eliminate the entire joints that are to be provided on a railway track. Instead, what you can do is the researchers have found out that the extent to which each rail expands or contracts. Okay, so the expansion and contraction or the strain that we see, temperature related strain that we see in these single rail section, okay, is equal to uh, the expansion and contraction that will take place if you join 4 to 5 rails together. It's like you have a 12-meter rail, it expands to around 5 mm every year and then contracts 5 mm every year. Then that 5 mm would be the same even if you join 4 to 5 different rails together. Now this joining what I'm talking about is by welding. So if a 12-meter rail section expands, that would be same as welding 5 different rails together. Okay, I hope you have understood what I'm trying to say. So keeping this in mind, after a lot of research that has been carried out, these engineers, what they have done is, or researchers, what they have done is, they have found out this, and that is when they have used this practice of welding number of rails together, and after certain number of rails you will have to again provide a fish joint. Okay, say at one point you have used a fish joint, then you will be welding four rail sections of 12 meters each, and then again you will have to provide a fish joint. Now this fish joint that you are providing after welding 4 to 5 different rails is to ensure that the rails have sufficient space to expand and contract, and they don't develop cracks because of inavailability of space. So this is what we mean by welding of joints. So those joints which are being welded together are what we call as the welded joints. Next is insulated joints. So when we normally use electric traction. Now I suppose I have already defined what traction is. So when we use electric traction for the vehicle to move from one place to the other place, since all the components are metallic in nature, right? The electric traction locomotives, or the locomotives which work on electric traction, okay, they will be having an arm at the top, and this arm will be always touching the electric cable you might have seen, which is running above the train. Okay, so that is what we call as the catenary contact. So what will happen is, when the vehicle is moving, there might be some flaws, and the electricity might get conducted through the vehicle, and it might get transferred to the rails. Now to ensure that, see, everything being metallic, as I told you, metal is a very good conductor of electricity. So being a good conductor of electricity, even if at one particular point, if there is conduction of electricity due to some problem, the electricity will be moving throughout the rail for kilometers together, unless and until it gets dissipated or it gets diluted. Okay. So for kilometers together, the electricity will be passed through these rails. Now accidentally, in case if there's a person who is crossing the railway track, or if there are wild animals crossing these railway tracks, okay, because of such leakage of electricity, they might get electrocuted. Okay, they might undergo a sudden shock, and people and animals might die. So to avoid this to happen, what we normally do is we insulate the joints, that is, between these two rails, the gap that you see will be filled in with elastic material. So the gap will be there, but there will be an insulating material being inserted. So even the fish plates and fish joints will be fixed with the help of insulator, such that the electricity from rail A will not get transferred to rail B. Okay, so those are called as insulated joint. Next is compromise joints. Now these compromise joints are to be provided when you have two different types of rail sections. Someone had asked me about this question few days back. I think this would be the answer for that. So those kind of joints wherein you have two different types of rail section. Say from Bangalore to Mysore, you have I section, and or the flat-footed rail, and from Mysore to say Kerala, you have a double-headed rail. So when you have two different types of rail sections joining together, you might have to make certain adjustments, such that whenever the vehicle transits from this particular rail section to the other rail section, it transits smoothly. Okay, now it's a very rare case. Nowadays everywhere you find flat footed rail. This is just for your information. Okay, So where two different rail sections are required to be joined together, it is done by means of fish plates which fits both the rails and hence known as compromise joints. So that is what it means. So the fish plates that we see here in the normal I-sectioned or the flat-footed rail cannot be fitted in those kind of compromise joint. You need to design the joint separately such that it fits both the types of rail sections. Okay. Next is expansion joint. Now normally in bridges, provision of expansion and contraction would be a huge task, okay, because everything would be metallic in nature. So such joints which are provided for the girders and the sleepers in the rails to enable free expansion and contraction, okay, are called as expansion joints. So this is what you need to remember. So these are the different types of joints what we have. So you might be asked about these things in the examination, so you should draw it properly and explain them as and when it is required. Okay. So when you have known what a joint is and what different types we have, we will now discuss about the requirements of good joints. Okay. The first requirement here is it should be as strong as possible. Secondly, it should maintain the rail at the same level. Third is it should have sufficient elasticity and must withstand the vibrations and shocks. And then it must be capable to resist the longitudinal forces. The fittings and fasteners must be easily accommodative, right? And it should be work friendly. Okay, so it must be work friendly means the workers should be able to handle it very easily. So the joints and fittings must not be too expensive. They must be cheap and durable, and the joints must be such that they may be used irrespective of the type of the sleepers used. So you need to design the joints in such a way that it will be easy to handle, it will be easy to construct, maintain, and even operate. Okay. Now this is where we move across the next section, which is regarding welding of rails. Now, the purpose of welding, I think I have already discussed with you a few minutes back, but still we shall revise about these things which are concerned about it. Okay. So the purpose of welding of rail is to reduce the number of joints and joint fittings, thereby effectively saving construction, maintenance, and even the construction and maintenance cost, and also the safety of the vehicles moving on them. Secondly, it is to restore the worn out, damage or rail section. Now welding is a technology that is used even for correcting the cracks or worn out rails. Okay, for all these kind of mending process, again welding will be used. Thirdly, to repair the damaged or worn out rail, especially in the curved section. And lastly, to restore the burnt section of the rail head. Now as I told you, there might be flowing of metal at the head, or wearing out of metal from the sides of the rail. All these kind of defects and failures can be corrected using welding process. Okay. Now the advantage here is that the number of joints gets reduced mostly. Okay, which will again reduce the cost of maintenance, because there would be no fish plates and fish bolts being used in most of the sections. Okay, so if the joints gets reduced by this process of welding, the maintenance cost also gets reduced. Then it increases the life of the rail due to reduction in wear at the ends. Okay, so wear and tear at the ends of the rail section will get reduced because you would have joined those rails together by welding process. Okay. Then these joints actually they cause lot of noise when the people are traveling in the train. So you might have heard that there'll be a huge or there'll be continuous battering sound coming out of the train when you are sitting inside it. Okay, so that battering action gives a lot of disturbance to the travelers who are traveling in the train. Okay, so that battering and hammering sound will always be there throughout your journey. So this particular sound that you hear or noise, you can say that it is a noise. Okay, so this particular battering noise that you can hear is when the wheels of the wagon approaches that particular joint section. Okay, whenever it approaches that joint section, you will hear that ringing or banging sound. Okay, so when you have welded the rails together, this noise is obviously reduced because there is no joint at all. You have joined the rails together by welding process. Only at certain distance you might come across or you will come across the fish joints, which again will give you the noise. So this noise cannot be entirely stopped, but it can be reduced, thereby increasing the travel comfort. Okay, now this particular joint which I told you, that is the fish joint, it induces certain friction and it reduces the tractive it increases the tractive effort that is required to pull the vehicle. Imagine throughout the highway you will be having rumblers. Imagine you are traveling in a car and you have these rumblers. I know I suppose you know what rumblers are, right? So at the junctions or at grade intersections, you might have seen there would be white strips which will just make your vehicle vibrate when you're moving on it. Okay, so those kind of rumblers will be used at only certain section, but imagine how your travel would be, okay, when you have your whole highway being fitted by these kind of rumblers. Hardly people will agree to move on such highways, isn't it? So on similar grounds, first is the comfort will get compromised. You will not be comfortable to travel on such sections. Secondly, your vehicle will get worn out, the suspensions would be spoiled. Okay, and there will be lot of fuel consumed also to travel from one place to the other place if you have these rumblers throughout. So on similar such ground, okay, imagine that these rumblers would be, or these joints that are there in the railways, they behave similar to the rumblers as I gave you as an example here. Okay, so it creates a lot of discomfort for travel and also to reduce the fuel consumption. Okay, so saving of fuel due to reduction in the tractive effort can also be seen in case if you have welded rails. Next is reduction in theft. In the olden days, people used to be very anxious enough to steal these rails because they would be very high in quality. Very good quality metal would be obtained, and if you sell that, then it would have made a lot of money to those people. So normally people, what they used to do is, these thieves in remote areas where the railway tracks will be moving around, they come, they just open up all these fittings and fasteners, they take the rail and then they go off. Okay, so when there's a vehicle coming, either if the pilot of the train sees it, then he will be able to stop the vehicle. If he is not able to see it, then there will be accidents taking place. So when you join these rails together, 12 meters each rails, when they are joined together with the help of welding, it will not be possible for the thief to lift all the 5 rails which are joined together, right, or welded together. It would be very heavy. That's why the chances of theft is reduced. Then it also increases the stability and stiffness of the railway track. So these are some of the advantages of welding the rails together. Right. Now, there are many methods with which you can do the welding process. So the popular ones are being told here, okay, or are being considered here. First one is the electric arc welding, second is oxyacetylene welding, third is flash butt welding, and then the last one is chemical or thermite welding. So we shall discuss about these welding techniques in the next class. It is very important. Okay. So I'll stop here and I'll continue in the next class. So I believe only 32 students have written their names in the chat box. 32, 26, I suppose. I had told you that you need to write your names in the chat box, right? So I think I'll stop here. Anyone has any doubt in this section? Any student? Or did everyone fall asleep? Someone need to reply. Yes?
Yes,
No
sir,
doubt,
it's
sir.
clear.
Huh? It's clear, sir. It was clear, right? So I think I'll stop here
Yes, sir.
and I'll continue in the next class. So the next class would be on Saturday, right?